Hey y'all, it's September the 1st, 2017. I'd like to thank y'all out there for joining me for another podcast. Alright, I thought we'd go ahead and dive down some more rabbit holes, you know what I'm saying? Get our hands full and dirty with the nitty gritty, alright, like we like to do. I thought we'd go ahead and wrap up the week. Before we do that, I understand there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that we don't even had time to go over. I really had to boil it down. There's a lot of stuff popping in the streets. But we're going to see if we can't get through the most important stuff, and it might be a little bit alarming to you. But at the end of the day, we got to understand that we're headed into the weekend, alright? It's a time designated for relaxing and enjoying yourself and enjoying your life. And peace and contentment, we're going to talk about that towards the end. But before we do that, let's just go ahead and dive down, way down deep, alright? Down to the belly of the beast, alright? Here on the internet, here in the world with current events, alright? The first thing and most important thing probably to discuss today is that whole Harvey hurricane deal down there in southern Texas, parts of Louisiana as well. It caused a whole bunch of calamity. Probably understand that it wasn't the strength of the hurricane, it was merely how long the dang hurricane lasted. Went ahead and devastated certain parts of that region. From what I'm understanding, it was in fact well worse than Katrina was. Right, so big deal. It's a pretty dang big deal. And, you know, there's a lot of, first of all, inspiring footage out there and testimonials of people getting their lives saved. There's a whole bunch of people that needed their lives saved, right? And that has been happening not only by government entities, but also by volunteer organizations from all across the nation and probably the world, all right? And I think that's very important to focus in on and dwell upon, alright? Because you're understanding that with such a big old city like Houston and all sort of these other cities out here, they don't exactly have contingency plans or anything like that set up for these natural disasters. Obviously, that is something that they should have thought about. Alright, but apparently it didn't happen. So all sort of people needed their lives saved. A lot of people lost their lives. Right, a lot of people are going to be found many days from now. They're missing right now. A lot of people, and a lot of people got their lives saved. Alright, by good old-fashioned Americans who just like to save people's lives and stuff, especially down there in Texas. Or I mean, I'm in Texas, well, but especially down in this region with Louisiana, there's people who come together. And there's people all across the nation, obviously, who come together just to help people out. Guess what? Does not matter what color your skin is at all. Alright? And it never did. I mean, you see all these racial animosities being drummed up by provocateurs with all sort of billions of dollars. Promoting such groups as Antifa and all these terrorist groups with masks on their face, beating people with sticks, you know what I'm saying? And the people who oppose them, all these Nazis or whatever, who is also being paid off, trying to drum up some animosity that does not really exist, because when it really hits the fan, if you will, people come together, alright, to save each other's life, alright? It becomes a life and death situation. Everything else is kind of secondary in this particular situation. And I think overall we're going to see positive results. Obviously, condolences to all the lives who were lost and the people who lost loved ones out there. One of the biggest problems, quite obviously and apparently, was the contradicting messages coming from the mayor of places like Houston and the governor of Texas. Situation was that the governor himself apparently a week in advance told everybody, you know what, this storm ain't looking good for y'all, you probably want to get up out of there. And then the mayor was like, pish posh, that's fake news, don't you ever listen to him, why don't you stay put? A lot of people lost their lives over that. A lot of people lost their lives due to political conflict. They literally lost their lives. Your life is absolutely hanging in the balance when your damn politicians are in disagreement and in such disarray. And that's what we're seeing. Lack of contingency plans for huge, humongous, low-lying cities such as Houston. That's probably a bad idea, right? Might want to invest in the future. And I see a lot of that in our future. I see people understanding, you know, when the natural disaster hits, you're gonna want to have a plan. Right? It is pretty serious. Anyways, that's a pretty big deal. You're gonna see a lot of calamity and a lot of there's looting going on. Obviously, we're talking about the Houston area, so there's that sort of stuff going on. Chemical spills. Apparently, the largest refinery in the area, maybe the nation. That's going to be shut down for weeks, and a lot of people are understanding that there's gas runs in certain areas because apparently there's going to be some sort of gas shortage. And the thing is, lack of contingency. Alright, there shouldn't be a gas shortage. We shouldn't be hanging in the balance so much. Thing is, I mean, inevitably what it is, you're going to pay a lot of money for gas. That's all what's going to take place. Why? Because wasn't no contingency plan in here for natural disasters. That's actually a good idea. So a lot of people are going to run out of gas apparently by Labor Day, which I don't know, but I think that's on Monday. They're going to run out of gas. You know, I don't know. Luckily, I don't use too much gas, so I don't really have to think about it too much. But a lot of people are going to have complications and stuff. And it's going to be food for thought for the future. Alright, I see a lot of positive things coming out of you know, the collective mentality as far as being prepared for something like this. Alright, it's not good when something like this happens and the government has been totally just grandstanding each other and just not telling y'all. I mean, the thing is, Abbott did say a week in advance, y'all think about getting up out of there. Turns out he was right. Alright, but anyways, let's dive into some other stuff, y'all. There's some other stuff to talk about, such as that border wall. And I know it's a tough subject. It's a tough subject for a lot of people. There's a lot of people feel all sort of different ways concerning that border wall there on Texas and part of California and stuff, and I think New Mexico. I forget who's all bordering, but big old beautiful border wall. Alright, there's been some development in regards to that. You know, a lot of people are growing quite impatient, I've noticed. There's still people out there who's got hope. Me personally, I also got hope that the wall is going to get built. Right, it seems as though steps are being taken. Alright, it's not necessarily being ignored. However, it is kind of going slow, and a lot of people would have concern over that. And I understand their concern, and it's very valid, the concern. I don't know. Like I said, and I said it many times, I'll keep saying it, I'm not exactly a huge fan of the wall. Problem is, America decided they want a wall. So it would be a great idea for it to get built in a timely manner. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I would imagine that such folks as Donald Trump would be looking for the exact best way, like the best people who can build the wall. And right now, they're actually selected. In fact, it seems as though the prototype contractors have been selected. Alright, so that's another step in that direction. I don't know what kind of timeline I would want to put on it, because like I said, a lot of people are growing impatient with the wall. Not only because they agree with the wall, but just because that's what he said he was going to do. We want to see results. I'm going to go ahead and give it to the end of the first year, me personally. Alright, because like I said, I don't know how long it takes, but I think that's reasonable. Alright, so at the end of Donald Trump's first year, you gotta start, right? And so, you know, we may or may not see that. He still has a few months before that does take place. And we'll see if we'll see that. I don't really know. But I would like the wall to be built officially, me personally. obviously you're going to want to get a contractor who will do it for the right amount of money, so we don't have to spend all sort of taxpayer money all over the top for no reason. So that might take some time. Alright, in other news, y'all out there who's familiar with the organization of the Southern Poverty Law Center, I say that because I realize that most people out there have not a clue what that is. And that's actually for good reason, because it's like, what good is the Southern Poverty Law Center when you think about it? For the people who do know of its existence, I mean, sure, they do all sort of things. The name Southern Poverty Law Center really doesn't make sense. I don't understand how it even applies. But, however, it's an organization loosely affiliated with certain government entities who basically, it's been their job for years to identify hate groups. Alright, like that's their claim to fame or something like that. They're calling certain church leaders out there and saying that they're hate groups, and calling out other people saying there's hate groups. And it's like, I don't know how y'all getting paid. I'm sure it's in nefarious ways. I don't know how y'all getting paid, because most people don't know who you are. The Southern Poverty Law Center. However, for the people out there who do know the likes of such organizations, you might be shocked to find out that apparently they've been transferring millions of dollars in cash to offshore entities. Apparently, that was found out recently, and you're probably flabbergasted at the idea that such an organization might be you know what I'm saying, siphoning money to offshores for whatever reason. An organization called the Southern Poverty Law Center is going ahead and transferring millions of dollars offshores. Like, that makes any sense at all. Alright, it seems as though everybody up in that organization probably should see a jail cell pretty soon. We're gonna find out if they do, but it seems as though they're being accused of all sort of things, y'all. Alright, color me shocked about that. Thing is, they're also still spouting off at the mouth. Y'all, they're still spouting off at the mouth. Alright, because that's what they do. Alright, that's their whole MO, is to spout off at the mouth. And I didn't read the article, please forgive me, but apparently Southern Poverty Law Center, while they're siphoning money offshores and also the various esoteric ways, they're going ahead and talking about taking down certain army bases, because they're considering certain army bases out there to be in fact Confederate monuments. And reports say that the Southern Poverty Law Center is accusing certain army bases of in fact being, in essence, Confederate monuments that need to come down. And so everybody and their mama is saying that there is no end to the madness. It does not end as statues and things like that being torn down for no good reason, and kicked and pummeled by savage barbarian little monkeys and things like that, just gathering around kicking statues and stuff. It doesn't end there, because the people who want the statues to come down, they also are going to want army bases to come down. They don't want everything to come down. What's going to go in their place? Does it matter? Nothing. Nothing's going to be in their place. Right? Just tear them down. Tear everything down. I mean, if they really did tear certain army bases down, it's not going to stop there either. It's not going to stop until they're tearing their own house down. Alright? That's where it stops for them. But like I said, Southern Poverty Law Center, everybody there needs to go to jail probably. Anyways, I thought this was interesting. I heard some things about it, and I went ahead and I was hearing things about it, and eventually I looked into it a little bit. Y'all might have heard there was a serial killer out there on the loose in the Kansas City area. There's a serial killer, and they went ahead and they caught him. Apparently, according to the authorities, they caught this young man. Alright, I forget his name, please forgive me, but a very young man, 22, 23-year-old young black feller, alright, out there. Serial killing. I mean, the reason I bring it up is because the way the story is being portrayed, by news sources is that it was a young black feller who was out there killing white fellers between the ages of 50 and 70, like people who's older, past middle age, white folks. Apparently he was serial killing them, all right, in the fashion of, for the most part, shooting them in the back in a very cowardly way as they're walking down a dang park trail, or like down their street walking their dog and stuff, going ahead and killing them, all right. And as the story goes, apparently way back in 2015, this young feller was already talking about maybe we should kill all white folks, all right, which is a sentiment that obviously you've heard before. It's being some sort of legitimate solution to everybody's problems. Maybe we should just kill all white folks. Thing is, that's definitely it's within the parameters of the First Amendment. It truly is. At the same time, there's people all over the television, obviously, all in the political realm, all over the internet, who've been spouting off at the mouth like, oh, maybe if we kill all white people, shoot, man, it'll all be sunshine and flowers after that, and we should honestly consider it. Those people, you ain't gonna find them out there killing white people. They just make money from saying it. Problem is that people get inundated, obviously, through the television, the people they see talking about kill all the white folk, and they get it in their head to kill all the white folk. And that's what happened with this young man. Since way back in 2015, he's talking about maybe we should kill all the white folk, and then he started doing it, right? Obviously, this young man had some problems, and come to find out, he was pretty much a registered schizophrenic for a while. I went ahead and looked into that article, and people writing the article went ahead and contacted the serial killer's mother. I want to point that out. For whatever reason, far be it from me to guess, for whatever reason, they didn't make contact with the serial killer's father. Alright, maybe they couldn't get a hold of him. But, alright, so they caught the serial killer. I think they caught him on 3 different charges, and he's also suspected on 2 and 3 other different charges. They just don't have enough hard evidence to get at him on those cases. But it might be over a handful of dudes that he went ahead and serial killed all around the Kansas City area. Alright, and just to be brief and wrap that whole story up, he wanted to kill all white folks, I guess, and he's killing all these white folks. Older folks, by the way, who are less likely to be able to defend themselves, shooting them right in the back, like, I mean, you know what I'm saying, the coward that he is, obviously. But you know, at the end of the day, none of it added up, you know, and I had to point that out. When the young feller got arrested, sources say that he was talking about just how angry he was. He was an angry young man. He was angry especially at the fact that his half-brother got killed, apparently, not too long ago. Alright, he was really angry by that. People who knew him said he was extremely distressed by that event. Alright, very disturbed by it. He was having a very tough time over there working at Burger King. Alright, and no, I'm not making a joke. Alright, he was having a very tough time, and he was very angry about that. So his solution was to kill white folks. Alright, I mean, he snapped and went ahead and killed white folks because he was hearing it on television, because he was hearing it in rap music, because he was hearing it on all sort of media and popular culture. He decided that was a great idea. Meanwhile, his brother wasn't killed by a white person to begin with. Killed by some black dude named Jimmy. Alright? So none of it made sense. Thing is, it doesn't have to make sense. Just to wrap it up, it doesn't have to make sense. That's what you're going to notice. Right? When people get so consumed with anger, when they're so consumed with their own self-victimhood, reality ceases to be important. Alright? It's no longer very much a factor. You're just going to go ahead, and I'm talking about, you know, schizophrenics and savage barbarians out there. They're going to go ahead and kill all sort of white folks because they heard it's a great idea. They've been hearing that they're victims their whole lives, and it's at the hands of older white folks. right? When they contacted this young boy's mother, she was talking about, you know, I didn't know that he hated white folks so much. It's like, okay, you didn't know? Alright, well, I believe you didn't know. However, the problem is, you knew he was a schizophrenic type person, and you knew that he was inundated in such a culture in which he's being told he's a victim, alright, all day. And at the end of the day, when a person like this goes ahead and snaps, obviously he's going to lash out against those he feels victimizing him. Alright? And it's a very sad situation, to be honest with you. You know, I looked into these certain details, and it's like, what it seems as though is that this young boy, forgive me for making an assumption, he was out there looking for a father, couldn't ever find one. Considered himself a helpless victim who is very much entitled to killing white folks because all these white folks are the source of his problems. You understand? Reality, when you're a victim, honestly, and your day is based around that, you'll kill everybody. Like, it does not matter because you're a victim all day. Alright? People owe you things. Alright? People are keeping you down in your head. Meanwhile, you want a father in your life and you don't have one. And I'm sorry about that, but you're going to see that over and over and over and over again. That's going to be pretty prevalent. And so I thought we'd go ahead and point that out. Another thing I want to point out is kind of serious. It's like, you know, a lot of people will talk about rape. A lot of people out there talk about rape as though they don't like it, right? And legitimately, most people, I would understand, do not like rape. It's a big problem. They don't like the rape, alright? And they want to go ahead and cut down on the rape. If we could slow the rape, obviously we're not going to stop rapes all over the place. There's still going to be rapes. There's always been rapes. But there's people out there, to include myself, who legitimately want to slow the rapes down if we could. If we could tone down the rapes, that would be awesome. Thing is, it's well established, but it's worth repeating that in most Western society, rape is frowned upon. There's all sort of other societies where it's kind of commonplace, alright? That basically is the rule of thumb. Alright, that's basically currency, raping little boys and things. Alright, so here, most people purport and are honestly opposed to rape. Alright, problem is that if you are opposed to rape, you might take the time to recognize all the sort of different ways that rape comes about and occurs. One particular situation I want to talk about, and this particular situation that's becoming more and more prevalent and more over the top, is that grown-ass adult women be out here raping folks. Raping all sort of folks. And it used to be like a joke, like, how in the world could a woman rape folks? Yeah, women rape folks. They could do it with the greatest of ease, apparently. Like I said, it's happening on a more steady click. As far as recently, traditionally, I think we can all agree that rape's been a man thing that men do, and obviously it's not a good idea, but that's traditionally been the way. However, women are popping off with all this rape and stuff all over the place, dude. I can't help but hear it all over the place. Particular situation that I want to point out right now, I forget where exactly, but apparently in one of these juvenile facilities, apparently there was female guards who was using male juvenile inmates as sex slaves, right? And I'm sure it's not the only place where that's taking place, but sex slaves, right? It used to be, people would talk about these certain situations, and they would refer to these young boys as like having a good time, or like being like something to be proud of, and the fact is that they're being raped by these older ladies, right? But that's actually not the case. You gotta understand, in this situation, irregardless, you can't get out of this situation, believe it or not. as far as prison guards go, they're probably not all supermodels, right? There's probably definitely instances in which these young boys are being made to have sex with things that they don't want to have sex with. But guess what? You can't get out of the situation. In fact, it's going to be real bad for you if you don't just go ahead and cooperate, right? That is only the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, I'm sure that situation's going on in multiple places, multiple places around the nation, and also to include all up in these schools, all up in these public schools. I mean, just every week there's a different situation. These grown-ass women just out here raping. And the thing is, it's pretty much well established. And if we wanted to take a bite out of rape, you know what I'm saying? Not in like a weird sense. If we wanted to crack down on it, we do have to recognize that it is actually a serious problem. Women out here be raping folks, y'all. And that's not to say men aren't raping folks. Obviously they're raping folks, but women be out here raping folks, y'all, and it's ridiculous. All sort of little children, sometimes their own children. They be raping old folks. They be raping all sort of grown men. They be raping folks. They be raping other women. These women out here is becoming savage beasts out here, and they're full of all sort of rape. For whatever reason, we might want to figure out why that is. What's the origin of all this female raping of people? Anyways, you know, it came to my attention, for those of y'all out there who know who Glenn Beck is, right, and are aware of what the Blaze is, and I understand that half people out there don't, and I don't blame you. Glenn Beck is a total stooge. Like, he's been rubbing his face in Cheeto crumbs for a while now. Like, he's been totally wilding out. He's been wilding out since well before the election of Donald Trump. However, he's still wilding out. He's wasting all sort of opportunities, obviously, to include Tomi Lahren. Right, squandering all sort of opportunities to actually present himself as a respectable individual. And it seems as though the Blaze, which is his media outlet, that's gonna have to suffer from some massive layoffs. Apparently he's losing all sort of money and viewership, and it's actually not surprising to me. What's surprising to me is that there's actually still people listening to him. Right, I would imagine those people are schizophrenics or something like that. I don't know what's wrong with those people who are still listening to Glenn Beck as he rubs his face in Cheetos and does all sort of absurdities in the name of conservatism. I don't know who's still listening to them, but they got some serious problems. Right, he's not going to last very long, and there's going to be a lot of media organizations in this particular time period that are absolutely going to tank. We've already been seeing it with certain ones. They're not going to make it through the very near future. All right, and that's sad. You know, you're going to see a lot of people come and go. However, I believe that the news community, the news gathering community, is going to grow stronger from that, from a certain sort of refinement and an alleviation of dead weight, such as Glenn Beck, and you probably heard about Rebel Media is pretty much not looking good for them. There's all sort of organizations. It's basically a cutting of the fat, if you will, as far as these organizations. Some of them just won't be able to keep their doors open. Glenn Beck, I'm not sure what he's gonna do. I'm sure he's gonna work at IKEA. I don't know what Glenn Beck. He's probably gonna still write books. I don't know who's gonna buy them. And I pray for those people. Anyways, I wanted to discuss, you know how sometimes we talk about sexual deviancy out here. Y'all, I'm going to be a grown adult with some of y'all out there. And for children, I guess, who, they're new to the idea of the fact that sexual deviancy may not be a good idea. It might be a good idea to steer away from that. There's just more and more evidence, and it's going to keep rolling out to the idea that that sort of behavior is very risky to your health. Apparently, in a very recent article, it stated that the rush for herpes vaccine, because there's an imminent rush for all sort of vaccines to alleviate herpes, which is absolutely popping off everywhere. There's a rush for the vaccine, and as it's being a totally urgent matter to come up with more and more vaccines, because there's an absolute demand for herpes medicines. All right. Apparently there's debate over safety rules as far as, the FDA and all sort of regulations, stuff like that. Apparently there's a debate over that, alright, because they need all sort of herpes medications desperately, alright. And so a lot of people are trying to take shortcuts and stuff like that. I don't exactly believe in all sort of regulations and stuff like that. Honestly, I would hope and suggest humbly that we take a proactive effort to cut down on the herpes, alright? Instead of desperately searching for more and more herpes vaccines. Might want to nip that in the bud. That's something that we discuss a lot here on the channel and stuff, and you're gonna notice that there's gonna be more and more evidence, alright? That you might want to think about who you're getting all naked with, alright? You might want to think about it, alright? And I also want to point out that people are drawing correlations. I don't know how legitimate, but they're drawing correlations between dating apps, because we all know there's any number of dating apps on the internet. They're drawing a correlation between dating apps and the fueling of the rise in cancer-causing STIs, to include herpes. Alright? Apparently the more dating apps that you see on the market, the more you're going to see herpes exploding like wildfire. For whatever reason. Alright? And that's probably not good, because these things cause all sort of cancer. Turns out you might not have to walk in a rally or parade to stop the cancer. You might just think about who you're getting all naked with. And I know people are going to do what they do, and I've done a lot of what they're doing out there and stuff like that. It's just not a good idea. It's not worth it at all. Alright? And that's becoming very, very apparent. I want to discuss this real quick, and honestly, it's probably one of the most significant things in my mind right now that we need to go ahead and touch upon. The Pope, alright, for whoever, and there is millions and millions and millions of people, but for whoever still finds the Pope to be legitimate out there, the Pope, what he's talking about right now, in the wake of such a natural disaster that took place in Houston, and there's being floods in different parts of the world, at this point the Pope is finding it an opportune time to say that, quote, it's time to listen to the cry of the earth, that the earth is crying. The Pope, who's supposed to be legitimate and not a crazy old man, the Pope is talking about that the earth is crying, and that's why people are getting flooded out, because the earth is crying on us, right? The earth is crying because we're not paying all sort of carbon taxes, such as in the Paris Treaty Accord. The earth is crying about that. It's very sad about that. And so people are losing their lives. Why? Because we're not paying all sort of carbon taxes to Al Gore and his buddies. Alright? So obviously the earth is going to be very saddened by that, and it's going to cause all sort of floods on us. If we didn't want the floods on us, according to the Pope, we would have been paying all sort of carbon taxes. That would have been our solution. And as absurd as that sounds, I want to dive a little bit further into this. If you ever heard of a book called the Bible, if you ever heard of that book, it's quite hilarious to think that, whether or not you believe in it, the book itself says that God created the earth. And also what the book says at the end is that God will destroy the earth when he sees fit. That's what the book says. Right? This is the book that that the Pope is supposed to subscribe to. Meanwhile, he's saying all over the place, he's saying very frequently that it's because we're not paying carbon taxes. It's because we're letting all sort of immigrants deal with their own problems. He says that the earth is crying on us because it's sad and we're going to destroy the earth. That human beings are going to destroy it, and they're currently destroying it. The Pope says we need to be guardians of the earth. Guardians of creation is how they put it. Right? He's saying because we're going to destroy the earth. Meanwhile, the book he supposedly believes in says God will destroy the earth when he sees fit. It does not say anything at all about humans destroying the earth, or that they even have the capability of doing so. Thing is, of course, they do have the capability of doing so. If you're familiar with all these crazy weapons, not to only bring up, but to include nuclear weapons that can destroy the earth quick, fast, very big parts of the earth. And like I said, there's other weapons that are even more advanced than that can destroy the earth even more efficiently. That is a serious issue to think about. Alright? Not whether or not we pay carbon taxes, which is what the Pope seems to think is reasonable. Alright? He says if we just shut the hell up and pay the carbon taxes, that God will stop the earth from crying on us and taking all sort of people's lives. Alright? Because if not, human beings are going to destroy the earth in direct contradiction to a book he supposedly believes in. Alright? He's getting billions and billions of dollars, all sort of pedophilia going on in and around his whole camp. The Pope, y'all. Anyways, something that I wanted to bring up on a technological note, and I'm sure it applies to all sort of different other smart devices that people have, not only around their house but inside their bodies. I wanted to bring up that apparently, y'all, 465,000, count them, 465,000 pacemakers have been recalled recently due to hacking risk. Alright, and as we already well know, that's obviously not the total amount of pacemakers that could be potentially hacked. And you know, it would be a crazy disaster if people were to hack into those pacemakers and totally kill off hundreds of thousands of people. And that is the situation that could be done through these smart devices that people are popping up in their dang bodies and all over their houses. Alright, so apparently that's not a good look, and a lot of people are going to have some machinery taken up out of them because they don't want to get hacked and have their heart explode probably. Also, I did want to bring up, before we get out of here, y'all, just a couple more things. It seems as though this month in particular, has gotten something of a shake in the economic market. Alright, it's getting a little bit questionable as far as the dollar. It seems as though the dollar has been on its longest losing streak since 2007, and y'all might recall what happened in 2008. Alright, but the dollar has been on its longest losing streak. You gotta understand that it does not revolve around Donald Trump, to be honest. But the dollar is diving further and further, and that might be something to think about, y'all. That seems pretty dang serious. But how are we gonna find out? I feel like we're gonna find out quite soon how that's gonna start to play out, and what it is that Donald Trump might have in store for doing something to combat that whole thing. You know, I don't know, there might be some ways to re-lift up the dollar, but it seems as though the dollar is becoming less and less and less valuable at an exponential rate right now. Alright, and that might be a problem for some of us. But like I say, there was some good things to talk about. Obviously, this weekend we didn't touch on too many, but there's a whole lot of bad things to talk about, certainly, and we did not touch on nearly half of them. All right, all sort of stuff going on that's very worthy of our attention to some sort of extent. All right, there's a lot of nefarious creatures running around that look to tear down all sort of society and pretty much screw with our lives, our livelihoods, and it really doesn't matter what's our politics and our race and things like that. There's people out here plotting, y'all. That definitely needs to be remembered. However, like I say, it is Friday. We are heading into the weekend. And we can't trip out about all this sort of stuff. It's bad and it's going to get worse, certainly. A lot of y'all out there have it pretty rough, and there's people out there who have it way more rough than you and I. Alright, certainly. However, we're not going to collectively, in my humble opinion, going to make much progress by feeling all down in the dumps and letting all this bad stuff, this kind of off-putting news get to us. All the herpes breaks out, and the natural disasters and politicians totally letting us down, certain ones in these natural disaster situations. There's a lot of stuff. The Pope walling out talking about the earth is crying on us. All sort of things that are very, very concerning, the pacemakers and things like that. Certainly. However, we're not going to legitimately battle against that if we are all down in the dumps. If we are kind of losing sight of reality, if we are being overtaken by anger, and also to mention anxiety and fear and things of that nature, we're not going to make progress because we're going to be all spun out in our brains. So it's very important that we understand and remember and keep remembering that all y'all out there who woke up this morning, see this here handsome face, y'all been blessed. Maybe not to see the face, but y'all been blessed in an untold number of ways. Alright? By whoever, whatever God that you think's doing it. Y'all have been blessed all sort of different ways. And maybe you do have it rough in all sort of different other ways. However, if we can focus on and savor the ways in which we are blessed, perhaps we have a roof over our head. Perhaps we don't go hungry like they do in certain countries. Perhaps, we're not all up in a communist utopia such as Venezuela. Alright? Any number, perhaps you woke up and you can see, perhaps you can hear, perhaps you have contact with your loved ones. All sort of blessings. All sort of drugs out there, and everything is drugs, by the way, to include everything on earth. All sort of drugs out there to make us feel good, and to get us all bright and peppy, and to get us well rested and healthy, and to get us in fighting shape as far as fighting our setbacks, fighting what's really holding us back, y'all. And there is stuff holding us back, alright? I understand. Have it rough out there sometimes. Alright, but get some drugs up in you. I'm not talking about that dope and that smacking that cream and stuff. Although if you do that, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. Alright? I'm talking about savoring your blessings. All the nice fancy things you have. All the nice fancy things that you're eating and drinking. All the nice weather, if you happen to have nice weather. All sort of things. If we're to focus on those things and feel real good, then we can stand to look at all these bad things and change them. Alright? Might I suggest that the most proficient way of changing them is looking inside of our own selves, recognizing just how guilty we are, our own selves, and changing that, looking in the mirror, something like Michael Jackson said a long time ago, and changing the world through our own selves, not through whining and crying and pointing our finger at every which way. Alright? That's not really going to help us. It's not going to really help us to be balls deep up in some depression and stuff like that. Alright? You got a lot going on for you. Alright? You're a special individual out there. And I believe in you. Alright? If I'm the only one, I believe in you. I think you can reach for the stars and stuff like that. You need to enjoy yourself. It's about to be the weekend. Savor your blessings. Focus on them. Meditate on them. Appreciate them. And I think that you're going to find that you'll receive more and more blessings, and I hope you do. Alright, anyways, we're all up in the tribulation, y'all, but there's all sort of success and peace and contentment to be had, and we will have it. Alright, it's September the 1st, 2017. I'll have to holler at y'all later. Please like it, please subscribe it, please I don't know what you do, but write comments if you like. Do all sort of stuff, man. I appreciate y'all out there, and I want to hear back from y'all. I know that y'all are also sharp individuals, probably much sharper than me, and I would love your input as far as to what you find concerning out there. What you think we should be talking about? What you qualify as the nitty gritty? I want to know that. Holler at me. Like I said, we gotta get up out of here and enjoy ourselves. So I'll holler at y'all later.